Yes, we have a lot of listeners that might not relate to the fantasy football or sports illustration, but we know there are lots of ways that we all begin forgetting priorities, moving away from God and others, and can become part of our destructive pattern. So, Ashley, what are other examples or maybe types of slippery slope behaviors that you have seen either in your story or in the many, many women that you've had the opportunity to work with?
Well, this was a great handoff, Nick, how you said. You like that? I use sports
Football puns,
terminology.
way to go.
I was like, wait, do you say pitch? Do you say,
You could, yeah.
okay.
They all probably would have worked.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. This is actually a great handoff because I was like, oh, I just jotted down things that have been a slippery slope for me, and some of them are surprising. So I'll just read a couple of them. Late night TV, watching TV alone, arousing or romantic novels, going out dancing, club music, sometimes saying like, oh, I'm just going to stay late and watch a movie with him, but I'm not going to do anything sexual. I'll have good boundaries. Video games, that's not mine. You know that's not mine, but I hate it, so it made the list. Scrolling social media, having just one drink. And then some interesting ones that I thought of, like I have encountered people who their relapse is isolation and it's really damaging to their family. And so even things, nobody like write me hate mail, like prayer could end up being like anything can become too much if it's really actually separating you from loving others and growing closer to God. And so, if we are doing things for ourselves, even that are spiritual, but it's at the detriment of our family, of our relationships, like even that needs to become a check. For me, I love researching. And so there's been times where like exactly what you described with fantasy football, when I'm supposed to be doing something else, I can go down a rabbit hole of researching. So one time in one of my Unravel groups, it was like, I can have an hour of researching as a reward if I, have done all the things for the day that I'm supposed to do. And then I can have this freedom and this peace to just sit and like go down a rabbit hole of researching things. But other times it's been like I walk away feeling really gross. And so I truly think that anything can be a slippery slope. And I've had the Casting Crown song stuck in my head all day. Like, which one I'm talking about? It's a slow fade, that one. And just like where black and white turns to gray. I've been singing it all day because of this episode that, I think that is the trick of the enemy, is to take something even that seems good and distract us from what is our best. And I think he can do that with anything.
Yeah. I think to clarify, maybe at least my perspective on it is I think that it's anything that causes you to isolate. And as you were talking, Ashley, I thought without like parameters or boundaries around it. So, for me, there are times when I go home and, I get home and I just want to change and relax and not necessarily need to play lightsabers with my kids the second I walk in the front door. And there are times where I find myself going back to my room and just like checking my email or doing something on my phone mindless. And even that can be a slippery slope, because if you look at it, it's a pattern of pulling myself away from relationship or from things maybe that even though I don't want to do, I probably should be doing at that time. And so I think it could be social media, YouTube, even work can be that for me. But being able to identify what are patterns or behaviors that I have that tend to pull me away, not in solitude where I'm doing it for the purpose to re-engage, but I'm pulling away for the purpose to avoid and not be present in any moment. I think that those are the behaviors that I could identify as slippery slopes.
Yeah, I think what you're hearing is that for different people can look different, because it's for some people, it's not isolating. It's actually the opposite, that they're choosing to be around people because the thing they should be doing, a work assignment, meditation and prayer, is something they need to do alone, but they don't like to be alone. So they'd rather go out with their friends. They'd rather play video games online with people. They'd rather go and do something interactive, but that for them may actually be a part of moving away from God's priorities in their life for the things that they know they're being called to do. And, I think, again, to come back to the faster scale, that's why in group, a lot of times when people are like, oh, I don't really identify any behaviors, I will encourage them, we'll read through that whole list under forgetting priorities and tell me if any of those behaviors were true at any time during the week. And when you start thinking through, to read some of them: secrets, less time and energy for God, meetings or church, avoiding support and accountability people, superficial conversations, sarcasm, isolating, changes in goals, obsessed with relationships, breaking promises and commitments, bored, overconfident, procrastination. So
Yeah.
I think if you hear that list, we all start to go, oh, well, I do some of those behaviors like every week, right? Because it's not possible, I believe, if we're being fully honest, it's not possible to live 100% in restoration all week long because it's just our human nature to kind of lose focus, to drift towards other things. And it's just, the key is seeing in my pattern, in my story, in my history, where has that consistently led to the next thing and then the next and then the next. And whether it's with people or alone, whether it seems like a fun thing or a boring thing, like if it's part of my routine pattern, I need to identify this may be a slippery slope that takes me down to that next behavior and the next and the next that ultimately takes me where I don't want to go.
Yeah, and I think that's, why the title is Slippery Slopes, because we don't always recognize it. And if you're looking at your 3 circles, sometimes somebody could look at something in the inner circle or the middle circle and think, well, that's not a bad thing. And that's why it is important to be in group. It is important to be doing your faster scale each week. It is important to be doing your thoughts and feelings awareness logs, because then you're connecting the behaviors that can look pretty benign with the way you're feeling, with the way you're engaging in relationship, and seeing what it actually does for you. We're not talking about like cliffs, let's not invite third people into our relationship or watch porn. Like those are clearly cliffs. But the nuances, I think we need people. There was a time where John, he loves hiking. He does that for his job. He's a wildland firefighter. And there was a time we got in a argument because it was after a relapse. And I was like, go have some self-care. Like, you need some self-care. And so we went on a hike and he came back. He's like, after however many decades of thinking hiking is his self-care, he's like, I don't think that was good for me. I think I need to be with somebody else because all I did was be in my head the whole time. And so it's like, hiking is a self-care activity for him, but that's not what he needed at that time. And so that's why we need the group, and we need people, and we need outside perspective too, to help us realize what we need in that moment.